A Residency, a framework for a day of an artist. This project is titled A Residency, and it proposes a new international artist residency to counteract the failing cultural climate amidst the placeless residential developments of East London. In the post-Brexit landscape, the UK government is prioritising STEM immigrant professionals, but where does this leave the cultural sector? This proposal creates an architectural framework for the relatively chaotic processes of artists. Principally, the architecture takes the standpoint that mess does not equal mess. Messy lives do not equal messy architecture. Instead, architecture acts as a framework for living, liberating the user from the pragmatic to focus on the experiential. The architecture is very still, so that the life can be really alive. There is no confusion between the two. The simple architecture does not dictate how people use the space. It eliminates the confusion and highlights the importance of life's mess rather than architectural mess. However chaotic and complex the lives within, the residency transforms the whole into a permanently ordered chaos. On arrival, the new resident is handed a schedule. The schedule is designed to allow the user to make a clear distinction between live and work. The scheme sits in the borough of Newham, one of the most culturally deprived boroughs in London. Silvertown Quays is witnessing one of many large-scale placeless developments in London. The site of the residency sits on the edge of the Royal Docks and is occupied by several relics of the industrial past of Silvertown. To the north, the massive Spillers Millennium Mills, a vacant flour mill. To the south, Silo D, an old grain silo. The creative programme of the residency echoes the productive history of the site as one of London's largest flour mills. As well as responding to the built environment of the site, the programme utilises the unique geology of the Docklands, sitting on a large vein of London clay, clay being a plentiful and sustainable medium for the production of paint, sculpting and other artist media. The process of placing natural clay media is simple and does not require specialist machinery. The residency provides the infrastructure for the artist to create and experiment with this vernacular media, a site-specific factory for art. The building is representative of its programme, defining live, work, the intermediate processes between the two, all sewed together by the public realm. The discipline of the architectural framework is matched by the material language. Dark raw concrete facades are bound by a visible post and beam structure, forming a rhythmic division of spaces. The segmented programme within is expressed by the tectonics externally. The logic of the master plan is summarised into three distinct layers. 2 blocks at either end of the rectangular pan represent the separation of live and work. 4 pavilions connected by a central pier expose the programme, from digging clay from the ground to processing the media ahead of painting, sculpting or potting. The public realm wraps the proposal at ground level. The residential block looks outwards over the Royal Docks. The studio block looks inwards over the existing ruins of Silo D. The 2 towers are inversions of each other. One building is solid, one building is open. They use the same logic for organisation, but they create the opposite effect. The pavilions between the 2 blocks are less prescriptive and encourage moments of chaos and inspiration. A framework for living. The artist rises in a square room. The walls are 4.5 metres of equal length. The walls are smooth dark concrete. A single window, half a metre wide, brings morning light into the room. The artist opens a heavy steel door and proceeds to the showers. The artist descends an external stair, encased in fine mesh. The artist walks out into an atrium. The ceilings are 5 metres high, supported by thick concrete columns. 9 skylights, 5 metres squared, bring a flat light onto 3 banqueting tables. The artist joins the queue for breakfast. The artist crosses the atrium and ascends a grand stair, 20 metres wide. Arriving in a narrow corridor, a blank wall faces a colonnade, changing booths, lit from above by a small square opening. The artist steps down onto the external colonnade. Square columns, spaced every 2.5 metres, frame the Docklands waters. Onto a narrow pier, a 100mm gap marks the threshold. The artist crosses a grid of openings, revealing the water of the dock below. The artist resurfaces and continues along the pier. The artist descends into a small clay quarry. The artist gathers their material. The artist resurfaces and continues along the pier. The artist descends into a second folly. A small chamber contains a series of top-lit booths. The artist prepares their material. The artist surfaces again, makes their way to the studios, crossing the second threshold. Moving through the equipment store, the colonnade spacing opens up, arriving at the foot of the old ruin of Silo D. The artist ascends the stair to the studios, moving to a square room flanked with kilns and workbenches. The artist walks down a narrow corridor and turns into the studio. The studio is a square room of equal length. The walls are 4.5 meters wide, the ceiling double height, a large window, a high level lights the room. The artist begins to paint. Living in the framework. Focused daylight casts my room in deep shadow. My coffee is brewing on the stove. I'm walking to the shower. Rhythmically, windows reveal matching openings across the courtyard with suggestions of like-minded routines within. Collectively we gather. Chaos fills the breakfast canteen. Segmented by strict columns and highlighted from above, conversations inspire ahead of the day. The building guides me, and an intimate space protects me while I change into my work clothes. Moving away from my living space, a colonnade leads me. I stand on the terrace, overlooking the clay pit. I dig for my clay. The ground below is stained with dust as I mix the clay, and the pigments fall between the gridded floor. Wrapped by concrete and the square windows of our studios, I enter the workspace and collect my things. Once in my studio, the ruin of Silo D is my muse. This warped perception becomes my inspiration. The studio acting as a framework for my mess. A residency, a framework for a day of an artist.